Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, Tom.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm taking tomorrow off and I have Monday off. So I'm like
Mm-hmm.
really energized and also a little bit all over the place because there's so many things I need to get
Good,
done
good, 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 good.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in the same way. I'm leaving tomorrow for a long weekend as well, heading down to
Oh,
LA.
sweet.
Yeah. And it's my birthday next week, so it's kind of a birthday
Oh,
celebration with like some old friends,
stop,
and
stop,
they're
stop.
they're all down there.
Oh, you're a Gemini, like my
Totally
mama.
a Gemini. Yeah. But what's the setup for this week's or this month's podcast? Can you give it to me?
So this month we are talking about park crushes. You know that
Mm,
moment you have when you go out to a park and you're either alone or you're with your friends or you're with an animal or a family member, whoever, and you find yourself not wanting to leave. And then you finally have to go. And then days later, you find yourself thinking about that park and how you can't wait to
mm.
see it again and how you can't wait to be there again and how maybe this time you want to bring somebody with you and maybe this
Mm,
time you're going to stay a little bit longer. It's kind of like having a crush, it
that is a
occupies your
crush.
mind, it makes your heart expand, it brings a smile to your face, and you carry this fondness in your heart. That's a park crush. And so
Mm,
we're going to talk about that. And related to that, we're going to talk about Park Score, which is our
mm,
annual event. We talked about it last year when we talked about 11th Street Bridge Park and the importance of community and equity.
mm.
And so there's a relationship between Park Score, right? The investments that are required for ensuring that parks are able to be available to everybody everywhere. And most of the time, when people have access to a park, that gives them also the opportunity to develop a crush. So we found a
Mhm.
relationship between the two. So we're going to have a
Okay.
conversation with Bianca Clark, who is
Mhm.
our Associate Vice President for our 10-Minute Walk campaign. She's also our Parks Initiative lead. So she's all things park. She's been a TPL for over 10 years. She's brilliant, she's kind, she's warm. So we're going to talk to her about Park Score. This year, the theme was around unity, parks being a space and operating as a unifier, if you will. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the key takeaways and the value that Park Score brings to park practitioners in cities around the country. And then we're going to share some of the conversations and interviews that we had with people in parks. You came out here to
About their
Denver,
crushes, yeah.
and we're going to talk about their park crushes. Like, hey, y'all, you're in this park. Do you have a crush on this park? It was fun to hear from people who were visiting Denver from other
Hmm.
places and they named the other place, which was really awesome. So it wasn't just about what happens here in Colorado. It was also about, I think we had somebody mention a place
New
in
Hampshire.
New Hampshire. We had somebody in Florida.
Hmm.
So
Totally.
it's not unique to where I am.
Yep, yep. Park crushes exist all over the country,
All over the world.
all over the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've got all these park crush interviews. We also got submissions from TPL folks. They
Oh, that's
submitted their
right.
park
That's
crushes.
right. Yeah.
That's a great episode to watch on YouTube
Okay.
because there is that video element. We are out there at the parks talking to these folks, the
Yeah, yeah.
submitters. We're in their park. So yeah, it's a varied episode. It's a super fun one.
Yeah.
So why don't we get to it?
Okay, let's do it. So, today on the podcast, we are going to be talking to people at various parks to find out what's their park crush. Places that you go that you can't stop thinking about. And we just want to see what's your park crush. We are starting off at Sloan's Lake. We're on the west side of Denver. You can see we've got the mountains behind me. You'll see that we've got people doing all kinds of things, whether they are paddleboarding, whether they are playing tennis, whether they're walking their dogs, strolling their kids, whether the kids are zooming around on scooters. I don't know what we're going to see, but we're going to find out why people are here and if this is their park crush. Come on, Tom. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
My name is Rhonda Lee Chapman, and I'm with an organization called Trust for Public Land. And we have a podcast called People, Nature, Big Ideas. And we have a theme this month called the Park Crush, asking people, like, where do you have your park crush? And we see you cleaning up, And so we assume that means you love this park for some reason or another. And we would love to hear from you how you feel about Sloan's Lake, this park. Do you have a crush on Sloan's Lake? If you don't have a crush on Sloan's Lake, do you have a crush on another park someplace that you could tell us about? I'm going to come down here. Oh, right.
We live around here. We've lived on both sides of the lake, and so
about 3 years.
for about 3 years.
Okay.
So we love this place. We've heard about the environmental issues that it faces with a dredging project in the works and all that to try and make it deeper and try and make it better for the environment, for the community. And so, but you said a crush. You like to hang our hammocks over there and over by the Melrose Inspirational Garden. It's a great view of the mountains. I'd say that's definitely our favorite spot around here, but we just like to do our part, help clean it up whenever we get the chance to.
Oh, I love that so much. What about you, darling?
Kind of the same story, but like just we do a ton of activities here. We like play frisbee, we ride our bikes here all the time. We try to come like once a day. We live like 1 block away. So huge crush is like Sloan's Lake is a big part of our lives, and so we're trying to do our part to continue to clean it and like make sure that it's great for the community and everyone can enjoy it as much as we have for the last 3 years.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Thanks for giving us the time. Can I get a high five?
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm totally...
Oh, I'll do no.
Okay. Mike?
Yep.
okay.
I'm Mike, and that's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Again, I'm Rhonda Lee, and thank you so much for what you're doing for the community. I personally just moved here about 5 weeks ago from Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow,
So I'm so happy to see you, and I'm going to see if I can find a way to make a contribution too. So thank you for the inspiration. You guys are awesome. We saw you sitting over here and enjoying yourselves, and so I thought, well, can we just maybe go see if maybe they're here because they have a crush on Sloan's Lake?
A crush on Sloan's Lake, okay.
But maybe you don't. Maybe you're here because you live close by, and there's another park that you'd rather be at because you have a bigger crush. And so the theme for this episode is, what's your park crush?
Okay.
Do you have one?
I would say Sloan's Lake is a good park crush for me. Yeah. we don't live in the area. We live in Lakewood, so we actually drove here and kind of set up shop for the day. So we really enjoyed it. I love the view of the mountains, the lake. On a beautiful day like today, it's perfect weather, not too hot, not too cold. So I love Sloan's. This is my mom, Diana. And I'm Molly. Yeah. She lives in Florida, so.
So how does this compare to Florida and any of the parks that you go to there?
We don't really go to the park there. We just go to the beaches.
Will this do for the time that you're here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's all we wanted to know. Yeah. We're glad you have a crush on the park, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Look at the proud papa. I don't think that I've seen that many chicks. It's usually like 6. Look at the proud papa, and look at the ones in the middle. Oh my gosh. Look at all those babies. What a success. A hatching success. Like, look at all the ones that survived. There's the one in the middle that's like, I don't know what to do, but I want to be independent. And Papa's like, no. Fall in line. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love the ones that are trying to forge ahead and get their independence. That just is very resonant. I love it. That little one out there, I don't know. That's my chick. Or is it duckling? That one's like, no, I want to go. No. Oh my God, this is so great.
We're from New Hampshire.
Okay.
I'd say Walt Disney World for him.
Okay, this is an answer. Wherever your park crush doesn't matter. Where is it?
Yeah, I'd say Magic Kingdom or Epcot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How often do you get there?
About 10 times a year.
Really?
Yeah.
And why do you love it so much?
Yeah, it's just a fun place to be. Yeah. Everybody's usually in a good mood.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What about
it's entertaining? Oh, I love the White Mountains, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. If I'm close to home, then White Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's all we needed.
We're visiting our son, so we're checking it out.
All right, and what do you think?
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
What park or parks do you absolutely have a crush on?
I mean, I pretty much like ride all around the city and go to as many of them as possible, but I'd say probably Sloan's or Wash Park because I live like a few blocks away, so that makes it pretty easy for me.
Yeah. What do you like about it? Is it proximity?
Proximity for Sloan's for sure. It's definitely a lot more like crowded and concentrated amounts of people then Wash Park's a little bit more spread out, and there's wider like bike and rollerblading and scootering and running lanes. So that's what I think. I like the space of Wash Park better.
Thanks a lot. I want to know if these geese have a crush on Sloan's Lake. My guess is yeah, because it's water. But I want to confirm. I shouldn't assume. So let's go find out. Hi, everybody. My name is Rhonda Lee Chapman. I'm with Trust for Public Land. We've got a podcast. It's called People, Nature, Big Ideas.
What did the geese say?
But they just walked away. They weren't interested in answering my question. So I'm going to go ahead and assume. That these geese have a crush on Sloan's Lake. We are in Washington Park. This is a very famous, very active park here in Denver. It has so many options for people to engage. I'm looking over the road and I see a wedding. We've got people out here in these duck boats. We've got people that'll be riding by on scooters and rollerblades and bicycles.
Do you have a crush on this park?
I kind of do have a crush on this park. It's kind of like Denver's Central Park. It's so massive and there's so many options. It's very diverse in terms of the people who access the space, and I really appreciate that. This is where you get to see all the various, segments of Denver's population, I think. Just chilling, just being outside, getting their crush on. So we're doing a feature for our podcast, and the podcast is called People, Nature, Big Ideas, and we are talking to people about their park crush.
I'm a Denver resident.
Okay.
So I'm born and raised.
Okay.
I'm 46, so I've been to pretty much all the parks, almost all the parks. But I kind of like the parks with the lakes, with the paddle boats, things that our families can do when we do come sit out in the park. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. What about you, sir?
I've been here for a couple of years, so wherever we go, if I'm with her, it's just that's my crush.
As long as you're in the presence of this beautiful queen, you're doing all right.
That's exactly right.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. We are in Mestizo Curtis Park, and it's on the east side of Denver, also in the 5 Points neighborhood. I appreciate how clean it is and how well cared for it seems to be. I also appreciate, Tom, that this park is also a TPL park, and I feel uncomfortable trying to say how long ago our project was completed, but a part of me feels like it was about 30 years ago or so. So that feels very special. I don't know if I have a crush per se, but there are some people who were here who might. And so maybe we should go talk to them and see what they say.
I'm actually a bad person to ask about the Denver metro area because I'm from Colorado Springs.
Do you have a crush down in Colorado Springs? Talk about it.
Garden of the Gods is just such a beautiful place, and it's just a very beautiful origin story of the land being donated, and it's just, in my opinion, just one of the really natural wonders of Colorado.
I love that. What about you? Do you have a park crush? Anywhere at all?
Good question. I mean, maybe the one that was by my childhood home, just because it was nostalgic, and I would always go there with my family and friends, and it was just kind of like a regular place that I enjoyed being.
Where is it located?
Arvada. A lot of memories, for sure.
I love that. Thank you so much. I think a park crush is like all crushes, where you can have multiple. Sometimes you have a crush on a park because it's new and you've never seen anything like it. Sometimes you can have a crush on a park because it's just close to where you live, so it gives you convenience and it gives you consistency. Sometimes you can have a crush on a park because it has a body of water, and water is something that you find very nourishing. I think it's wide open. You can have a crush on as many parks as you want to, because all that means is that you love them. It just means that you appreciate them for all that they offer you and offer others. So can you treat it with respect? Can you treat it with honor and know that it's always going to be there for you? All right. Bianca, thank you so much. One of the reasons why you're here is because you are one of TPL's greatest champions for an incredible resource that we provide across the country called Park Score. And part of the reason why I think you might be an incredible champion for that is because you are also TPL's Associate Vice President for our incredible 10-Minute Walk campaign. You are also our Parks Initiative lead. You've been here at TPL for, I think, a decade now, doing incredible research, making incredible connections to cities around the country. You're a phenomenal leader. You bring so much depth and so much knowledge to this parks work. And so it's an honor to have you here. So thank you for coming and welcome, Bianca Clark.
Well, thank you. That is way too kind. I wake up every day and stuff to pinch myself that I get to work in such an amazing place and with amazing people and around this amazing subject and field of parks. It could not be a greater pleasure and honor to be able to do this work.
I love it. I love it. This theme, as I mentioned, is about park crushes. I also made a reference to Park Score. And I know last year we did one episode about Park Score. And in that incident, we spoke with Scott Kratz from the 11th Street Bridge Park project in DC, which is something that's near and dear to me. But for those folks who haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, and for folks who may not be familiar with TPL's Park Score, I would love if you can riff on Park Score, what it is, how long TPL has had it as a resource, the importance that it has on impact in parks across the cities in the country, and anything else you'd like to mention about Park Score. Like, why do you have a crush on Park Score, Bianca?
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying I do indeed have a very large crush on Park Score. And I have since I started here over a decade ago. And before I started at Trust for Public Land, I had a crush on the organizations. I had started to read a lot of our publications and reports and pieces about the importance of parks, and a lot of what enabled us to talk about parks from such a unique perspective about the importance of investment and the importance of having quality spaces was that we collect this information. So I think my crush on Park Score is very much tied to my love of this field and to the love I have for parks and for all of the benefits that parks bring to people. And Park Score came about for a number of reasons. Peter Hernick, who used to lead our Center for City Park Excellence, used to say, if you don't count, you don't count, or what you don't count doesn't count. And I'm messing that up a little bit, but there was really this recognition that we needed to understand what the current state of our parks field was. There has been a long history of parks love and investment in this country, but it has also ebbed and flowed. And we've seen real periods of underinvestment, now chronic underinvestment in our park systems. And a lot of that is because we don't always have the language and the data to talk about the importance of them. So Park Score came about, and City Park Facts, I should say, came about in 2007, when we really started to collect data and started to count things related to parks. So what amenities existed, how many, where were parks, how many parks were there in the country, how much were we investing, how many people were working. Just started to think about what are the things that we needed to measure and to track to be able to talk about parks and advocate for them and really, really set some goals and improve our parks for everybody. And then we started ranking cities in about 2012, and that has continued to grow. So we actually started Park Score rankings with 40 cities. Today, we rank the 100 most populous cities in the US. And that's been an evolution and a growth as more cities have really used this as a tool, as advocates use it as a tool. We work with a lot of cities that aren't one of those 100 to actually do a custom Park Score analysis for them as well. And one of the things that I love, a big reason why I have a crush on Park Score, is that the evolution of the use of the rankings and the tool has really changed. And a lot of that is due to the media interest, to our community partner interests, to our city partners who really treat this rigorously and use it as a benchmark and as a rallying point for us to all get behind parks, celebrate progress, thank each other for the investment and the work, and set goals for the year ahead.
I think about it as a critical piece of like social infrastructure in many ways, which is kind of probably an unformalized term, but I am also a person with a lot of park crushes. I and I think having that measurement, that justification, that rationale for the investments, either economically or in other ways, is really important. So thank you for that overview. That was really, really comprehensive.
I could keep talking about it too. So.
I know, I love it. I mean, this is your jam. It's terrific. So every year we have a theme, and this year the theme was around parks being a unifier. I would love to hear you talk about this parks as a unifier and maybe what you particularly appreciated. And then after that, maybe share with us a little bit about the rankings, the scores, why something was different for you this year, just any story that you'd like to share. You know that we love a good narrative here on People, Nature, Big Ideas.
And I think about the connection to the outdoors maybe in a different way this year also than I would have in the past, now being a new parent.
Yeah.
And that the word connection has grown a lot in my mind and experience as well. I think from the way that we do our work, connection between people and nature and the outdoors has always been at the center of everything we do. But that also includes the connection between people. So we are a part of our ecosystem, we're a part of nature. And I think that recognition is something that drew me to Trust for Public Land and the kind of work that we do and the partners we work with. And the report this year focused on togetherness and connection and unity because it is such an important aspect of parks, but it's also incredibly important in the here and now with levels of division that people generally want to address. I think people want to feel connected. One of the things that we know is that people feel happier outside, that they feel more connected. And we were able to really explore some of these questions more specifically in investing in the special report. So one of the reasons we do a special report alongside the rankings is to talk about these big questions every year and to be able to really take deep dives. And one of the things that I think was really interesting that we've seen this year, as we've seen also in years past, is that places that invest in parks, a lot of our high-ranking cities, they also see really high rates of volunteership. They also see really high rates of people connecting to each other. And one of the points that we saw this year was that people reported that they had conversations in parks or met people in parks that they might not have otherwise. I think one of the really exciting things is that doesn't happen only because a park is just there. Having a park is baseline. Having that access, that 10-minute walk to a park is really important, but it's also what that process is like to design a park with community. What is the process like to design programming? And are there stewardship opportunities? How is the park activated? It's all of those pieces of a park that really make it greater than just the sum of its parts. I think that that's one of the really important pieces that the report this year highlighted. And maybe I'll share two really quick stories.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Take your time. Yeah.
I'm too inspired, and Rhonda, I love chatting with you about this. You bring out like the best of everybody and of all this work, and I could talk to you for hours, but I'll spare everybody and focus on two quick stories here. One is more work related, and one of the things that I really get the pleasure of doing in my role is working directly with city governments and working with city governments also to connect with community partners and to connect with residents. That's one of the big things that we focus on, is thinking about the systems and processes that help cities and staff connect with residents, connect with experts, and just tie it all together and really create that inclusive process that leads to all the outcomes we know parks can help achieve. And one of the things that I think we've seen parks enable is this connection between our structures and our institutions and systems and people, and making them really accessible. And one thing that's really important to me in the work that we do with the city government side of our work is making sure that we're thinking about our institutions in new ways and thinking about them in ways that are just and inclusive. And I think parks are an incredible entry point for that. And we see that, and we saw that come up in a lot of the reporting from the survey and the report that we did this year, is that people are participating more, that there is greater civic capacity, greater understandings. Just there is a change that's happening and a connection and a trust that's being built. I think parks are that great trust builder as much as they also are a unifier. So that's sort of the work, this wonky thing that I'll mention.
Before you go on, Bianca, you just inspired what might not be a fair question because it's speculative, but do you think that the COVID pandemic ended up being a catalyst for how people engage with each other in parks? Because remembering that was the only place that we could be, we saw an incredible uptick in park usership, if that's even a word. And I'm just curious if you think that was a really pivotal moment in our history when it comes to parks and park activation and unifying neighbors and folks around a community.
It's a great question. And I don't think that we're ever going to separate that moment from the history of parks and our relationship to them. They became they always have been, I think, sort of the heartbeat of our communities. In a lot of ways, our public realm is essential for society, but I think it made that very real for everybody. And park spaces became the lifeline for a lot of folks. And I feel that very personally. I just moved to New York when the pandemic hit, and we're in a small apartment, and getting outside to feel the fresh air, to see other people, to see the sky, to feel the winds, all of those things that just help lower your blood pressure, clear your minds, offer some relief from the stress of the world and everything that's going on, the worry about family who's not nearby. Just there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of stress that being able to get outside helped. And also you weren't seeing your neighbors, you weren't seeing your community in other ways. Even seeing people on a computer screen is not the same as being able to see somebody in real life. And parks were that place. They were that safe place where you could do all of those things.
Thanks for indulging me on that. So I know you were going to tell us a story. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll just add one more thing just on the pandemic, which is as much as we saw people talking about parks and loving their parks, we still need to see the investment catch up to the importance that we recognized. I think it was one of those things where we saw it and we really, really need to invest in them as those spaces, because it is, I think, just as easy to imagine if we hadn't had those. Then we don't want to ever live in a reality where we don't have access to parks in the way that a lot of places did. And I think it was very noticeable in places that didn't have access. So rectifying that, addressing that, I think is an urgent issue. But anyways, I'll stop there. That just not also just being a new parent, it is the place where I'm seeing my daughter now learn about the outside, meet other kids, seeing her be social for the first time, like waving to other little children or clapping for them if they're singing in the park or doing the monkey bars. It is just a tremendous and very visceral experience to see that happening.
I know we only have a few minutes left, and I'm thinking about the future constantly. Every day I think about the future. And as you were just kind of illuminating the importance of having the investment match the evidence, right, around parks, and thinking about Park Score, I know this year we were able to kind of dial into more specificity with our data, which I think makes it an even stronger tool. And I'm kind of curious, some imaginings or some thoughts that you might have about the future of Park Score and how it might influence some new direction or some new outcomes. What's on your mind about that?
Yeah, I love that question. And Brenda, I think that you're going to have a lot of influence, and I hope that you will have a lot of input into the future directions, because I think one of the two things that we talk a lot about with park systems is that you need to have access. You need to have equitable access. And so that means achieving the 10-minute walk. And when we talk about that, what we're really talking about is having the presence of parks, but also thinking about quality and unpacking what equitable access really means. And so there's a lot wrapped into that. That Park Score has evolved to include over the years, from what kinds of amenities to tracking types of investment, to tracking the 10-minute walk in different ways, the size of parks. There's a lot that, back to that, what you count counts. As we continue to advance this conversation as a field with all of the cities that are engaged in Park Score, we'll continue to advance that methodology to really match the goals that we're all aiming for, the benefits that we know parks can achieve, and what is really helping to achieve those benefits. And I think that a couple of years ago, when we added in that equitable access component, that was one of those evolutions. There's a recognition that we really wanted to dig in and name that as a priority. And so I'm excited to see where we continue to go as we continue to really define and prioritize equitable access, quality, the performance of park spaces, inclusion, other types of investments as well. I think that there's room for us to do all that. I will just say, Park Score is a starting place, and we know this. There is a real need in rankings to have a standard methodology, and that's really important to being able to have a valid ranking that means something. But we always see it as a starting place, and we see the numbers as part of the story. And every single city, it doesn't matter their rank, has stories of progress and celebration of parks. And I love to focus on those. I love to focus on the improvements that are happening. I love to focus on the stories of cities that are taking that ranking, really investing in improvements. And to me, that's one of the most exciting places of growth and next steps for us as an organization, also the field at large, is really thinking about how do we take this tool, talk about it all year long, and really continue to improve parks for all. Yeah. That's what it's really about. It's the benefits to people. And that's what this is all about.
I probably cause a little bit of eye rolling or irritation for like the experts that do all the data gathering and the incredible mapping and the assessment. But I know that I'm interested in maybe having like a parks aspiration score, right? For the parks that don't make it to the top 100 because of their size. I'm curious about, the 200 or the 300 and investing times, resources and expertise. I've talked several times in the past about, we have these parks and we talk about the quality of the parks, et cetera, the programming, the investments, all of those things. And just the notion that, well, if the journey from a person's home to that park isn't safe, isn't equitable, isn't even walkable, it doesn't really matter as much, that there's this really beautiful space on the other side. If there's a freeway that's intersecting, if there's a rail system that's an intersection, whatever that barrier is. So how do we invest in removing those structural barriers so that folks can get those amenities that we love so much? I think about that all the time, but I'm not a planner. I'm just a thinker. So thank you for naming that.
Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important, is the real access. You have to have that to really achieve all the benefits that we know parks can that they promise. Yeah. And the social barriers, the societal barriers, the things that are not as visible too. I think that's one reason that this report this year is important, is because it talks about those kinds of things too.
So I think we probably want to encourage people to go to tpl.org and do a search for Park Score and read our special report on parks as a unifier and that around togetherness. So please, people, as you're listening, go to tpl.org and do a search for Park Score and read our special report. I think it should probably be on the front page. Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and if you're from the 100 largest cities, go check out your score. If you are not from one of those cities, go check out what other cities are doing too. There's something for everyone there. And if you're a community member or from a city and you're not on the Park Score list, as I said, we work with cities to do sort of this kind of analysis, no matter the size or market type. So I think that there truly is something for everybody in the findings, and something for everybody to take away and to do. This parks work takes everyone.
Absolutely. So another way to say that is, hey, folks, TPL is here for you. Don't ever forget that. We've got such willing and able, talented people that want to make sure that you have access. It is a priority. It's part of our mission. So in closing, Bianca, as we talked about at the very top of this conversation, this month's episode is about the Park Crush. And we've had, I had Tom come out to Denver. It's interesting just talking about rankings. I was in DC and now I'm in Denver. So I still existed within the top 10. If those rankings are any indication of my quality of life. Anyway, Tom came out to Denver. We went around to a few parks and I had a chance to like shove a mic in people's faces and ask them about their park crushes. So now I'm kind of shoving the virtual mic in your face, asking you, do you have a park crush? Where is it? Why do you have it? Tell us the story.
Yeah. I have many park crushes, and as you can imagine, in my role, I almost feel like I'm not allowed to just name one.
I know.
I will share a very, very special place that I have a crush on, which is the park that I grew up visiting all the time with my siblings and my parents from San Mateo, California. And we used to go to this place called Beresford Park. It's a public park next to a rec center, and I continue to have a crush on that park to this day, because growing up, when I think about the times laughing and being happy and where I bonded with my siblings and we came up with lots of wild little games and imagination, that was the place where that all happened. You know, there was lawn and there was play structure. That's not necessarily what I remember. It's just the physical. It's how I felt there. And it's the memories that are held there. And it's the aspiration that I have for what I want my daughter to experience. And knowing that places like that exist, that park continues to be cared for, I find very moving. It is one of those shared, dare I say, sacred places that other people continue to love too. And knowing how much I love it and that there's other people who care and love for it, there is an invisible connection there that I find really beautiful. And I have yet to find another type of space that enables that. And I will say that I also am very lucky to be in New York, where I'm surrounded by some beautiful park spaces, and I try to frequent them almost every day now. So I have many, many new park crushes in my new neighborhood.
Well, I can't wait to hear the story from when you're able to take your daughter to San Mateo and you can take her to that park and plant that seed. And she is a part of our future. So I'm really grateful and thank her in advance for whatever it is she's able to offer into her world that helps kind of sustain the legacy of her mother and her father and everything that you all have done in this incredible and important space. So with that, I say thank you, Bianca. It's an honor to learn from you always. And I look forward to having you back here again sometime, someplace, because you're always building. So thanks, Bianca.
Oh, I appreciate it. It is always fantastic to talk to you. I love this podcast, and ditto, I appreciate everything that you're doing to help make that a reality. I think it's incredibly important, and you're an inspiration. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, People Nature Big Ideas. It's Vanessa Martin here, and I'm with my best friend, Frankie. Come here, boo-boo. Well, okay. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. Hey, Frank. How you doing, bud? So this is the park within a 10-minute walk from my house. We are in Austin, Texas, and this park is our park crush because it's so close to our house and it provides us with opportunities to exercise, lots of opportunities for Frankie to smell all the smells in the neighborhood and meet up with friends. Right, bud? You see the basketball there? My son is in high school. He comes down here with his friends in the evenings after it cools off and they play pickup games. There's a great little pool over there. Part of Austin, Texas's public health plan is to actually provide pools for neighborhoods because it gets so hot here. And those pools are free during the summer. Most of them are anyways. Okay, there's also a little bluebonnet field here at this park. If y'all know about the hill country, you know we're famous for our bluebonnets, which is a wildflower that blooms every spring. So I'm going to show you the bluebonnet field. May or may not have bluebonnets. It's a little late in the season, but let's go see. So no bluebonnets, but we do have some late season wildflowers. Lots of prickly pear cacti. Okay, this is Frankie's favorite thing to do. He loves to scratch his back in the grass. Always fun stuff to find here in the park, huh? Oh yeah. The other thing I love about this park is that it connects to a big green belt. There's a little spring, and when we get good rain, we have little waterfalls down there. So we're gonna go down into the green belt. Let's go. Okay. Lots of good smells. Really appreciate that they keep this trail so nice for us. This is definitely a team effort. There's a couple volunteer days a year where the neighborhood comes out. It's called Love My Park Day. And then we all have to do our part when we're here. So whenever I'm here and I see a little trash, someone didn't pick up their dog bag, go ahead and just pick it up. Okay, so now we're down in the green belt. As you can see, it's nice and green. And when it rains, you can hear a lovely little babbling creek. All right, let's keep walking, Frank. Let's keep walking. Good boy. He just loves walks. Okay, one of the coolest things about Austin is all of the limestone. I think the geology here is so beautiful. It is a karst system. So technically we're down in, I think, the northern part of the Edwards Aquifer. And the Edwards Aquifer is the primary water source for Central Texas. And it's all these limestone formations. It creates like Swiss cheese, so when it rains, that rain water goes deep into the aquifer and it filters the water. And what comes out is all of the springs that make Austin so famous and Central Texas so famous. This is one of those springs. As you can see, it's a little dry because we have been in a drought for the last couple of years. There's a number of other factors too. You know, population is growing here, and we know that surface water and groundwater are all connected. So more people means more straws in the aquifer. So that has an impact because of the development associated with that. And then we're also dealing with the impacts of climate change. So Central Texas is changing. All the more reason for us to protect places like this so they remain healthy and resilient, so that our kids and grandkids can enjoy walks in green belts like this too. So I'm really grateful to the city of Austin for investing in this green belt because it's just so beautiful and it's so important.
Hi everyone, Tom Miller here from People, Nature, Big Ideas, executive producer, and I am at Curtis Park, which is my park crush and also my dog Hugo's park crush. The walk from our house is only about a mile, and it's through a very quiet stretch of neighborhood with very few cars. People play volleyball, baseball, soccer. Here we have music in the park as well. There's also another park on the way here to Curtis Park, so we sometimes stop by there. It's got squirrels for Hugo. It's got a running trail around the perimeter, which even at noontime is completely tree covered. So it gets really hot in Sacramento. So even on a 95-degree day, it's tolerable because you run in the shade. So yeah, that's our park crush, Curtis Park in Sacramento, California. Yeah, good boy. Is this your park crush? What do you see? See a squirrel?
Hi, my name's Tate Ferguson. I work in the Parks program here at TPL in our Ohio field office in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm here sharing my park crush, which is Wendy Park. So many things I could talk about why I'm crushing on this park right now. For starters, you see we're right in the shadow of downtown Cleveland, Terminal Tower, the new Sherwin-Williams building right there. And so that's just a really cool part about this park. We got skyline views. Also, on the other side of me, we've got Wendy Park Bridge. This is actually a TPL project right here. We helped fundraise for this bridge, which opened in 2021. You will hear the freighter horns. We're right on the Cuyahoga River, so the freighters are going through this whole time. But Wendy Park Bridge helps make this park just a 5-minute bike ride from my apartment, which is really awesome. And on top of that, even cooler is that this bridge actually connects this park and the lakefront on the other side of me at Lake Erie to the Lakeview Terrace complex, which is one of the oldest public housing complexes in the country, and for 90 years didn't have access to the lake or this space, even though they're about a quarter mile away. And so this bridge is really transformational. Before, you had to have a car and drive about a mile west even to get to this park, and now it's just a quick little hop across the bridge. A couple of the reasons this is my favorite park, besides the fact I'm here 3 times a day, biking, hanging out with friends, going on a run. We've got some beach volleyball courts right here. Those are a ton of fun. There's leagues all throughout the summer. You're playing right on the water. Me and my TPL colleagues have participated before. I am not good at beach volleyball though. Really, the shining feature of this park is we are right on the shores of Lake Erie. This is not typical for Cleveland. Most of our lakefront is actually taken up by industry, airport, a salt mine, or just is inaccessible if you're just a pedestrian or a cyclist or a runner. And so the coolest part about this park is you can get right up onto the lake, which is something that's really hard to find here in Cleveland, and truly a gem. And so you can come here, sit at the picnic tables, watch the sunset over the lake, and all those human things are great, but what makes this park even cooler is it's a critical wildlife corridor. So right now we're in peak kind of bird migration, monarch migration period, and all in these trees around me. This is a critical stop on the journey, either north or south, depending on the season, to rest and recharge before birds cross Lake Erie or right after they arrive here to continue going south. That means right now you can see tons of warblers, monarch butterflies, and other amazing animals here at Wendy Park. But yeah, like I said, I'm Tate in our TPL Ohio program, and this is Wendy Park, my park crush. And one more view of Lake Erie, just for good measure.
People, Nature, Big Ideas is produced by Trust for Public Land in partnership with Pretty Good Productions. Our executive producer is Thomas Clayton Miller. Our senior producer is Vanessa Martin. And our associate producer is Alyssa Morley. And this month we had a guest associate producer named Nguyen Tara Key. So special shout out for her guest appearance. If you like this show, please give us a rating on iTunes, maybe mention us to a friend or two. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.